Hey everyone, it's Janelle Waz and welcome back for another video. I love video games, and I love retro video games, and I also like tearing apart electronics and repairing them. So I thought, why not combine them and turn it into a video? So that's what I'm doing today. I'm taking an old dirty Sega Genesis controller in desperate need of a cleaning. I'm going to clean the controller's board, clean the plastic components, and maybe provide some tips along the way for anyone else looking to do the same. So, let's get started. Like any project, cracking open a controller will require a couple of things. Now, I like to put a towel down where I'm working, but you certainly don't have to. It's just a personal preference of mine. You will need one Sega Genesis controller in need of a proper cleaning. 91% isopropyl alcohol. I recommend trying to go for 91%, but I've gotten away with using 70%. It's better to go with a higher alcohol percentage so it will evaporate faster when it's applied to the board. Obviously, you don't want to leave moisture on electronics longer than you have to. You will also need plenty of Q-tips and a cup to put the isopropyl alcohol in. Now, I'm using a Dixie cup, but don't use a Dixie cup. I found that while working on this project that the alcohol was seeping through the paper of the Dixie cup, so find something where that won't happen. A small plastic cup is fine. Make sure you don't skimp on the Q-tips. In fact, I had to run and get more while recording this video. You will need a lot of Q-tips. The cord has a couple of tears in it where the wires were exposed, so I'm also using some electrical tape in this video. You will also need a small Phillips head screwdriver. I have this nice little kit that comes with magnetized screwdriver heads that make getting tiny screws easy, but you could also use a jeweler's screwdriver kit. You may also find that using an old toothbrush will be useful during this project for cleaning hard-to-reach spots. There are special cleaning brushes for this, but an old toothbrush works just as well and is more cost-effective. I boiled an old one of mine just to kill the germs off, and that's what I use. So first things first, let's fix the tears in the cord. Now I'm sure there's a nicer way to do this, but I'm just taking some electrical tape and covering the exposed wires. The wires look like they're intact, so just covering them so the cord doesn't tear further should be fine. You could probably use some heat shrink tubing for a nicer look, but since I have electrical tape on hand, that's what I'm using. And for right now, it does the job. If you know a better way to do this, please leave a comment. I'm always looking to improve my skills. Now, let's crack this open. If you flip over the controller, you'll notice 6 screws in the back. Simply unscrew them with your small screwdriver. As I've mentioned before, my screwdriver is magnetized, so the screws just come right out when they're unscrewed. But if your screwdriver isn't magnetized and you can't pick the screws out, just unscrew them and flip the controller over when you're done so they fall out. The screws are rather dirty here, so we can clean those off later. With the 6 screws out of the way, the top and bottom should come apart easily. The board will be attached to the top part of the controller, so you can put the bottom part off to the side. We'll be washing that later. Let's separate the board from the top part, shall we? The board of education, if you will. You'll notice that the cord is wrapped around a couple of pegs on the inside. Just unweave it and the board will lift right out. We're left with the top part of the controller with all the buttons and button pads. You can just pop those out and set them off to the side for a little bath later on. The directional button pad is still attached to the board, but it comes right off. Now that all the plastic parts are off to the side, let's take a little inventory. You should have a top and bottom piece, 3 lettered buttons, A, B, and C, 1 gray start button, 4 button pads, 1 for the 3 lettered buttons and the start button, a directional button, and a directional button pad. All of these pieces are just plastic and perfectly fine for washing. Now let's start cleaning the board. Take your small cup and pour some isopropyl alcohol into it. Cheers! Guys, please don't drink isopropyl alcohol. Take a Q-tip, dip one side into the isopropyl alcohol, and get to work. Now, you don't want too much isopropyl alcohol on your Q-tip. You don't need to drench the board in order to clean it. Just wipe off the excess at the side of the cup. I like to clean the button contacts first to get rid of any dirt. To be honest, I didn't find a whole lot of dirt on the lettered button contacts. There was some, but I've seen a lot worse. There wasn't even a whole lot on the directional button contacts themselves, but there was some weird funky stuff near the directional buttons. This stuff was stubborn and took plenty of time and plenty of Q-tips to clean off. There was even some on the other side of the board as well as around the solder points. Yeah, look at all that. We gotta take care of that. Okay, so the Board of Education is taken care of. Let's wash the plastic pieces. I have a little bath here with some warm soapy water. Just regular dish soap, nothing fancy. And start washing the plastic pieces like you're washing your fine china. I use a washcloth a little bit, but most of the time I use the toothbrush. I didn't do this in the video, but you might also want to use Q-tips during this part to really get into the hard to reach areas. Really clean those edges and hard to reach areas because you don't know what's gotten into there over 30 years. Everything cleaned up pretty easily, but I was most concerned about the directional button pad because it was near all that funky goo. But it cleaned up pretty nicely. Heck, I even dunked the screws into the water. Once you're done scrubbing, rinse everything with clean, unsoapy water and dry with a towel. I have a hand towel, but any clean towel is fine. You want to make sure that the plastic pieces are really dry before you put the controller back together, so I recommend letting the pieces air dry a little before then. You might also want to use Q-tips to sop up the water in hard to reach spots. What did I tell you? You need a lot of Q-tips. And here's a shot of all the cleaned pieces. Before we put everything back together, let's give the cord a once-over. In my research, the best way I could find to clean the cord was to take some isopropyl alcohol on a washcloth or paper towel and wipe the cord. Again, if you know a better way to do this, please leave a comment. I want to learn. So take some isopropyl alcohol on a washcloth, hold on to the base of the cord so you don't pull the wires out, and wipe the cord. I'm careful around the electrical tape areas so I don't stress those areas any more than I have to. Now it's time to put everything back together. First, I put the buttons back into their spots in the top of the controller. If you look at the hard plastic buttons for the lettered and start buttons, you'll notice two small tabs, one bigger, one smaller. This makes it impossible to put the buttons in upside down. If it doesn't go in, then it's probably in the wrong way. However, you will have to check the correct positions of the lettered buttons. Here's a diagram for that. The directional pad goes in anyway. It has tabs, but they're all the same size, so it doesn't matter how you put it in as long as it goes in. I also noticed a little dirt in the middle of the directional pad, so I cleaned it with a little isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. Once you have the hard buttons in place, then put the button pads on top of them. Place the pad with the nub side on the button so the flat side touches the board when the controller is put together. You can either put the directional pad on top of the hard directional button or put it directly on the board, whichever suits you best. Me, I just put it on the board. The directional pad also has two holes, one that fits into a peg and the other that fits around where a screw is supposed to go. Once everything is in place, plop the board back into the top of the controller and weave the cord wires around the pegs so the cord exits through the opening on top. And then close up the controller with the bottom piece. It should just snap into place. I like to do a quick check to make sure everything feels okay, and then I screw these 6, now clean, screws back in place. And there you have it, a clean controller. And for whatever reason, if you decide something doesn't feel quite right, just unscrew it and realign. Nothing to it. Plus, once you take apart a controller once, it becomes easier and faster to do later on. And now for the moment of truth. Well, I call that a success. Thanks for tuning in and watching me do a little controller surgery. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please let me know, leave a comment. I like comments and I like interacting with people. And since you made it to the end of the video, how about giving me a like and subscribing to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
You've got a lot to learn if you want people to think of you as a miracle worker.